The desert doesn't forgive. It never has. For millions of years, the Arabian Peninsula has baked under a sun that shows no mercy. No clouds, no shade, no rain. Just heat rising from the sand like a wall, pushing everything back, drying everything out, killing everything that dares to grow. From space, it looks like a wound on the earth, a vast, cracked, empty scar stretching thousands of kilometers in every direction. And yet, right now, beneath that dead landscape, water is moving. Billions of liters of it, flowing through steel, buried deep underground, crossing mountains, crossing deserts, crossing what should be impossible. This is the story of how Saudi Arabia built a river where no river could exist. This is Quiet Tech Process. Saudi Arabia is one of the driest countries on Earth. That is not an opinion, that is a geological fact. The kingdom receives less than 100 millimeters of rain per year in most regions. Large parts of it receive almost nothing at all. The Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, is one of the largest continuous sand deserts on the planet. It is bigger than France, and it is almost completely, utterly, permanently dry. For centuries, people survived here on groundwater. Ancient aquifers, massive underground reservoirs of water that collected over thousands and thousands of years, kept communities alive. Wells were drilled, water was pumped, life continued. But then, Saudi Arabia grew. From a small population scattered across harsh terrain, the kingdom became a modern nation. Cities exploded outward. Riyadh grew from a small desert town into a metropolis of 7 million people. Jeddah, Dammam, Mecca, Medina, all of them growing, all of them thirsty. And the aquifers started to run out. This is not a small problem. These are ancient water reserves, fossil water that took tens of thousands of years to accumulate underground. Once they are gone, they are gone. They do not refill in a human lifetime. They do not refill in 10 human lifetimes. Saudi Arabia was draining water that could never come back. By the late 20th century, the situation was becoming critical. The country had one of the fastest growing populations on Earth, one of the highest water consumption rates per person in the world, and one of the smallest natural water supplies of any nation anywhere. Something had to change, something massive, something that had never been attempted at this scale before. Saudi Arabia looked west to the Red Sea and decided to take its water from there. The Red Sea is deep, warm, and almost completely enclosed. It is rich in salt, saltier in fact than most of the world's oceans, and it stretches along Saudi Arabia's entire western coastline for over 1,800 kilometers. It holds more water than Saudi Arabia could ever use. The problem, of course, is that it is salt water, and salt water cannot be drunk. It cannot irrigate crops. It cannot cool a power plant. It cannot fill a city's pipes. In high enough concentrations, salt water kills. So the Saudis had to remove the salt. Desalination is not a new idea, but doing it at the scale Saudi Arabia required, that was something else entirely. The kingdom began building desalination plants along the Red Sea coast. Not small facilities, enormous ones, industrial complexes the size of small cities running day and night, processing millions of cubic meters of seawater every single day. The technology at the heart of these plants is called reverse osmosis. Seawater is drawn in through massive underwater intake pipes. It is filtered, pre-treated, and then forced at enormous pressure through membranes, thin polymer sheets with pores so small that salt molecules cannot pass through. Only pure water molecules make it to the other side. The The pressure required is extraordinary. We're talking about pressures 60 to 80 times greater than the air pressure around you right now. Massive electric pumps, motors the size of trucks, run continuously, pushing millions of liters of water through those membranes every single hour. On one side of the membrane, salt water, brine, unusable. On the other side, clean, pure, drinkable water. Saudi Arabia now operates the largest network of desalination plants on Earth. The Ras Al Khair facility on the Arabian Gulf Coast alone produces over 1 million cubic meters of fresh water every single day. The plants along the Red Sea coast add millions more. But producing the water was only the beginning. Here's the part that most people never think about. You have desalinated water. You have it sitting on the coast in enormous storage tanks, clean and ready. But your cities are not on the coast. Riyadh, the capital, the heart of the nation, home to millions, sits hundreds of kilometers inland, deep in the desert, at an elevation of 600 meters above sea level. Between the coast and Riyadh stands the Hejaz mountain range, steep, rocky, brutal terrain. You cannot simply point a pipe at Riyadh and let the water flow. The water would have to be pumped uphill, over mountains, across hundreds of kilometers of hostile desert, all while maintaining enough pressure to arrive usable on the other side. This is what the Saudis built. A pipeline system of almost incomprehensible scale. Massive steel pipes, some over 1.6 meters in diameter, run in parallel corridors across the landscape. They are buried deep underground to protect them from the extreme temperature swings of the desert, scorching heat by day, freezing cold by night. They are coated, insulated, and sealed with precision engineering. The pipeline does not move water by itself. Along the route, enormous pumping stations are positioned at carefully calculated intervals. Each station is essentially a small industrial complex, warehouse-sized buildings filled with rows of high-powered centrifugal pumps, electric motors, control systems, and backup generators. Each station receives the water, boosts its pressure, and sends it on to the next. Station after station, after station, like a chain of giants passing a river over a mountain range. The entire system is monitored in real time. Sensors embedded along the pipeline track pressure, flow rate, temperature, and structural integrity at thousands of points simultaneously. Control rooms staffed around the clock watch everything. Any anomaly, any hint of a leak, any unexpected pressure drop triggers an immediate response. This steel river never sleeps.
At the end of the pipeline, life. Riyadh's massive receiving reservoirs fill with water that began its journey as Red Sea saltwater just days earlier. From those reservoirs, it flows into the city's distribution network, into homes, into hospitals, into schools, into restaurants and offices and factories and mosques, into the taps of 7 million people who turn them on every morning without thinking twice. Outside the cities, the water tells another story. Saudi Arabia has used its desalinated and transported water to build an agricultural sector in one of the least suitable places on Earth for farming. The center pivot irrigation systems are visible from satellites, perfect green circles stamped into the brown desert, each one fed by a water supply that traveled hundreds of kilometers through steel to get there. The scale of what Saudi Arabia has built is almost impossible to fully absorb. Thousands of kilometers of pipeline, dozens of pumping stations, some of the largest desalination facilities on the planet, a water network that supports tens of millions of people in a land that nature equipped with almost no water at all. The desert is still there. It has not changed. It is still vast, still hostile, still completely indifferent to human survival. But beneath it, something extraordinary runs. A river of steel and salt water and engineering and ambition. A river that should not exist, that could not exist, and yet flows every second of every day, keeping a nation alive. This is what quiet engineering looks like. This is the infrastructure the world forgets to talk about. This is quiet tech process.